Commander Elara Chen stared at the holographic display hovering above the mission planning table. The exoplanet designated HD 209458b, nicknamed Osiris by the crew, rotated slowly before her eyes, its topographical features rendered in exquisite detail thanks to the orbital scans conducted over the past week. "There's something wrong with this data," she said, tracing her finger along a section of the planet's northern hemisphere. The ship's AI had flagged several anomalies in the preliminary scans, geometric patterns too regular to be natural. Dr. Marcus Wells, the expedition's chief xenoarchaeologist, leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram. "Not wrong, Commander. Just impossible." "Explain," Elara demanded, though she already suspected what he was about to say. She'd seen the scans herself, had spent countless hours reviewing them since they'd entered orbit around Osiris 3 days ago. The implications were staggering. "Those aren't natural formations," Marcus said, manipulating the hologram to zoom in on a particular region. "Those are ruins, extensive ones, and unless I'm completely off my rocker, which after 30 years in this field, I doubt, they're human in origin." Elara felt the familiar pressure of command settling heavily on her shoulders. The United Earthspace Agency had dispatched the UESA Prometheus on this mission with clear objectives: survey the newly discovered exoplanet, catalog its resources, and assess its potential for colonization. Nowhere in their mission parameters was there a protocol for discovering human ruins on a planet 20 light-years from Earth. "That's not possible," Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel, the mission's astrophysicist, interjected from across the table. "We're the first humans to venture this far from the Sol system." "And yet," Marcus replied, enlarging the hologram further to reveal what was unmistakably the remnants of a city grid, "here we are." Elara studied the faces of her senior staff gathered around the table. 12 of the finest minds Earth had to offer, selected from a pool of thousands for this historic mission. She saw in their expressions the same mixture of bewilderment, excitement, and apprehension that churned within her. "Chief Engineer Novak," she said, turning to a stocky woman with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. "What's the status on the lander?" "Ready to deploy, Commander," Sophia Novak replied. "All systems green across the board." Elara nodded. "Then we go down. I want boots on the ground in 12 hours. Marcus, you will lead the archaeological team. Raj, handle the scientific analysis. Sophia, you're responsible for maintaining communication links with the ship." She paused, sweeping her gaze across the table. "Whatever we find down there, we proceed with caution. This mission just took an unexpected turn, and I don't want any surprises." As the meeting dispersed, Elara remained at the table, studying the hologram. The ruins seemed to mock her with their impossibility. Human structures on a planet humans had never visited, in a star system humans had only recently discovered. "What are you?" she whispered to the enigmatic ruins. The hologram offered no answers, only the tantalizing promise of a mystery unlike any humanity had encountered before. The descent to Osiris's surface was smooth, the lander gliding through the thin atmosphere like a stone through water. Elara, seated in the command chair, watched through the viewports as the alien landscape rushed up to meet them. The planet was predominantly desert, vast swathes of rusty orange sand punctuated by jagged mountain ranges and the occasional splash of blue where mineral-rich pools dotted the surface. And then there were the ruins. From the air, they stretched for kilometers in every direction. A sprawling metropolis of crumbling structures that had once been a thriving city. The architectural style was unmistakably human. Even from altitude, Elara could discern the remnants of boulevards and plazas, the skeletal frames of what might have been skyscrapers, the concentric circles of what appeared to be a massive central forum. "This doesn't make any sense," Raj muttered from his station, eyes glued to his scanner readings. "Carbon dating from orbit suggests these ruins are approximately 5,000 years old." "That's not possible," Marcus replied, though his voice lacked conviction. 5,000 years ago, humans were just beginning to build the first cities on Earth. "And yet," Elara said, echoing Marcus's earlier statement, "here we are." The lander touched down on what had once been a wide avenue, kicking up a cloud of reddish dust that momentarily obscured the viewports. When it cleared, Elara found herself staring at a scene that could have been from humanity's distant past. or perhaps its distant future. "Suit up," she ordered, unbuckling her harness. "We have got work to do." 20 minutes later, Elara stepped onto the surface of Osiris, the third human to set foot on this alien world. The gravity was slightly less than Earth's, giving her movements a buoyant quality despite the weight of her environmental suit. She surveyed the landscape through her helmet visor, taking in the ruins that surrounded them up close. The evidence was even more compelling. The structures, though weathered by millennia of exposure to the harsh elements of this alien world, were undeniably human in design. Doorways sized for human occupants, windows placed at human eye level, streets scaled for human vehicles. "I want samples from everything," Elara instructed the team of scientists that had deployed with her. "Materials, soil, residual organic matter if you can find any. Raj, set up the portable lab. Marcus, start mapping the site. I want to know how far these ruins extend." As the team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Elara ventured deeper into the ruined city, accompanied by Lieutenant Zoe Kim, the mission security officer. The two women walked in silence, their footsteps leaving imprints in the dust that had accumulated over thousands of years of abandonment. "What do you think happened to them?" Zoe finally asked, her voice crackling over the comm link. "The people who built this place?" Elara shook her head. "That's assuming humans built it at all. You think it could be something else? Aliens who just happened to build in a style identical to human architecture." "I don't know what to think," Elara admitted, "but I intend to find out." They approached what appeared to be a central building, larger and more intact than the surrounding structures. Its facade was adorned with intricate carvings, the details surprisingly well preserved despite the passage of time. "Commander," Zoe said, her voice suddenly tight with tension, "you need to see this." Elara followed Zoe's gaze to the carvings above what had once been the building's main entrance. There, etched into the stone with undeniable precision, was a symbol that sent a chill down her spine despite the environmental suit's temperature regulation. The emblem of the United Earth Space Agency, the very organization that had sent them on this mission, on what they had believed was humanity's first venture to this distant star system. "That's not possible," Elara whispered. "Commander," Marcus's voice came over the comm, urgent and breathless. "We have found something. You need to come see this." Immediately, the discovery was housed in what appeared to have been some kind of archive or museum, preserved in a chamber that had remained remarkably intact despite the millennia of exposure to the elements. It was a data storage device, primitive by their standards, but sophisticated enough to have survived the ravages of time. "Can we access it?" Elara asked, watching as Sophia connected the alien device to their equipment through a series of adapters. "It's compatible with our systems," Sophia replied, her surprise evident. "Which should be impossible, but at this point, I'm starting to think that word has lost all meaning." The team gathered around the portable display as Sophia activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a cascade of data began to flow across the screen, text, images, videos, all in a language that was unmistakably English, albeit with archaic syntax and vocabulary. "My God," Marcus breathed as the data coalesced into a coherent narrative. It was a historical record, an archive of a human colony established on Osiris not in the future, but in Earth's distant past. According to the data, approximately 5,000 years ago, at the dawn of recorded human history, a group of humans had traveled to this planet and established a colony that eventually grew into the sprawling city whose ruins now surrounded them. "This is insane," Raj protested, though his voice had lost its earlier certainty. "We didn't have the technology for interstellar travel 5,000 years ago. We barely had bronze." "According to this," Sophia said, scrolling through the data, "they didn't originate from Earth. At least, not the Earth we know." The archive told a tale that stretched the boundaries of scientific understanding. The colonists had been refugees, fleeing the destruction of their homeworld, an Earth in a parallel timeline, one where human civilization had advanced thousands of years ahead of the timeline Elara and her crew knew. Their world had faced an extinction-level catastrophe. A gamma ray burst from a nearby star that had sterilized their Earth, leaving a handful of off-world colonies as the only survivors of their version of humanity. A parallel timeline, Elara mused, the implications rattling her. A branch of humanity that developed faster than we did, achieved interstellar travel millennia before us, only to be nearly wiped out by a cosmic event. And these survivors, Marcus continued, reading further into the archive, they settled here on Osiris. They built this city, but something happened to them too. The final entries in the archive described a desperate situation. The colony, cut off from the rest of their civilization by the destruction of their homeworld, had struggled to survive on the harsh world of Osiris. Resources had dwindled. Systems had failed. The once thriving city had slowly died, its population declining with each generation until the last remnants had made a final, desperate decision. They left, Sophia said, reaching the end of the archive. They salvaged what they could from their failing colony and set out for the only other habitable world they knew of in this timeline, Earth. They went to our Earth, Elara realized, the pieces falling into place. 5,000 years ago, coinciding with the sudden emergence of complex civilizations in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley. The sudden flowering of human civilization. Marcus nodded, his voice hushed with awe. The abrupt appearance of sophisticated knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, architecture. It wasn't natural development or alien intervention, as some fringe theorists suggested. It was us, Raj whispered, a more advanced version of humanity, integrating with our primitive ancestors. Elara felt dizzy with the implications. The circular nature of the discovery threatened to overwhelm her. Humans from a parallel timeline, more advanced than her own, had fled to this world, only to fail and seek refuge on the Earth of her timeline. There, they had jump-started human civilization, accelerating development, and perhaps setting humanity on the path that had ultimately led Elara and her crew to this very spot, discovering the ruins of those who had come before. We need to bring this data back to Earth, she decided, her commander's instincts reasserting themselves. The implications for our understanding of human history, of physics, of the multiverse theory, it changes everything. Commander, Zoe's voice cut in, tense with urgency. We have got a problem. A major dust storm is approaching from the west. ETA, 40 minutes. Pack it up, Elara ordered. We take what we can and return to the lander. We can come back after the storm passes. But as the team hurriedly gathered their equipment and discoveries, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something vital. Some crucial piece of the puzzle that would explain why she felt a strange sense of déjà vu, as if she had always been meant to make this discovery. The storm hit with unexpected ferocity, forcing the team to shelter in the lander as hurricane-force winds hurled dust and debris against the reinforced hull. Through the viewports, Osiris had transformed from a desolate landscape of ruins into a seething cauldron of impenetrable, swirling red dust. Atmospheric readings are off the charts, Raj reported, monitoring the external sensors. This isn't a normal dust storm. The particulate density, the electrical activity, it's like nothing in our predictive models. Elara frowned, studying the sensor data over Raj's shoulder. Could our presence have triggered it? Our landing, our activities? Unlikely, Sophia replied from her station. But I'm detecting unusual energy signatures at the periphery of our sensor range. They almost seem artificial. A heavy silence fell over the crew at the implication. If the storm was artificial, then something or someone had generated it, perhaps in response to their presence. The archive mentioned a defense system, Marcus said suddenly, returning to the data they'd recovered. Something the colonists built to protect themselves from. Something. The entries are fragmented, but they refer to it as the Guardian. You think this ancient defense system is still operational after 5,000 years? Zoe asked skeptically. If it was designed to last, to protect something important, Marcus replied, then yes, it's possible. A sharp crack of thunder rattled the lander, followed by a flickering of the internal lights. Sophia's fingers flew across her console. We are losing power. Something's interfering with our systems. Switch to backup generators, Elara ordered, maintaining her calm despite the rising tension. Raj, can you isolate the source of the interference? Working on it, Raj replied, his face illuminated by the glow of his console. It seems to be coming from. Wait, that can't be right. What is it? Elara demanded. The signal is coming from beneath us, Raj said, double-checking his readings. approximately 200 meters below our position. There's something down there, some kind of structure or facility extending deep underground. The archives mentioned subterranean levels. Marcus confirmed, scrolling through the data. Secure facilities built to withstand the harsh conditions on the surface. If the defense system was activated, it might be trying to drive us away from something important. Elara made a swift decision. If we can't leave because of the storm, then we go down. There must be an entrance to these underground facilities somewhere in the ruins. You won't go back out into that. Zoe gestured toward the viewport, where the storm raged unabated. No, Elara replied, moving to the equipment locker and retrieving a portable ground-penetrating radar device. We're going to find our own way in. It took 4 hours of scanning the ground beneath the lander before they located a suitable entry point, a section of flooring that, according to the radar, concealed a shaft leading directly to the underground facility. Working with precision despite the storm battering the lander, Sophia and her engineering team cut through the ancient materials, revealing a dark passage extending downward. I will go first, Elara stated, already securing her environmental suit. Zoe, Marcus, Raj, you are with me. Sophia, maintain communication with the Prometheus. If we lose contact for more than 30 minutes, inform them of our situation. The descent was treacherous, the ancient ladder groaning under their weight as they carefully made their way down the shaft. Elara's helmet lights illuminated the passage, revealing walls inscribed with the same language they'd found in the archive, a variant of English infused with technical terminology from civilization far more advanced than their own. After descending nearly 200 meters, they reached the bottom of the shaft, emerging into a vast chamber that took their breath away. Unlike the ruins above, this facility was intact and impossibly still operational. Soft blue lighting activated as they entered, illuminating a space filled with technology beyond their understanding. This is incredible, Raj breathed, approaching what appeared to be a central control console. This technology, some of it I recognize, but much of it is centuries beyond our capabilities. The archives mentioned that the colonists brought their most advanced technology with them. Marcus recalled, examining inscriptions on the walls. This must have been their command center, the heart of their colony. Elara moved deeper into the facility, drawn toward a pulsing light emanating from an adjacent chamber. What she found there stopped her in her tracks. It was a massive device, occupying the center of a circular room. At its core, a swirling vortex of energy pulsated with hypnotic rhythm, casting dancing shadows on the walls. What is that? Zoe whispered, coming up beside her. Before anyone could respond, a voice spoke, not over their comms, but directly into the room, emanating from hidden speakers. Welcome, descendants, the voice said in perfectly comprehensible English. You have returned, as was foretold. A holographic figure materialized before them, a woman dressed in clothing unlike anything they'd seen before, her features bearing an unsettling resemblance to human, but with subtle differences that suggested thousands of years of separate evolution. I am ARIA, Artificial Responsive Intelligence Assistant, the guardian of this facility. I have awaited your arrival for 5,136 years, for months and 17 days. Elara stepped forward, her heart pounding. You expected us. Of course, the hologram replied, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. The quantum calculations were precise. This timeline's humanity would achieve interstellar travel and discover Osiris in exactly this era. You're right on schedule. The implication sent a shiver down Elara's spine. You're saying our discovery of this planet wasn't by chance? There is no such thing as chance, Commander Chen, Arya replied, and the use of her name, which none of them had spoken aloud, heightened Elara's unease. Only the unfolding of probabilities across the quantum landscape of reality. How do you know who I am? Elara demanded. Because I have all the data from the timeline from which my creators originated, Arya explained. A timeline where your counterpart played a pivotal role in humanity's development. Patterns repeat across the multiverse, Commander. Different circumstances, different choices, but core elements remain constant. Elara struggled to process this information. What is this device? She asked, gesturing to the swirling vortex. This is a quantum bridge, a technology that allows travel not just between points in space, but between timelines in the multiverse. It is how my creators arrived here, fleeing the destruction of their Earth. And it is how they departed for your Earth when this colony failed. And why is it activated now? Raj asked, approaching cautiously. Because the cycle is complete, Arya replied. The storm above is not a defense mechanism. It is a temporal anomaly, a side effect of the quantum bridge reactivating after millennia of dormancy. Your arrival was the trigger, just as predicted. Elara felt a growing sense of dread. What cycle? What are you talking about? Arya's holographic features softened into something like compassion. My creators understood the nature of time far better than you do. They realized that their interference in your timeline would eventually lead humanity back to this point. To you, standing here now, completing the loop. The hologram gestured, and a new projection appeared. A complex diagram showing multiple timelines intertwining, separating, and reconnecting in an endless Mobius strip of causality. My creators didn't simply flee to your Earth, Arya continued. They carried with them specific knowledge, technologies, and genetic modifications that they introduced into your timeline's humanity, guiding your development along a predetermined path. You are saying we were engineered? Marcus asked, his voice hollow. That human civilization, as we know, is the product of deliberate intervention, not engineered, Arya corrected. Guided. Certain key individuals throughout your history carried the genetic legacy of my creators. Individuals who made pivotal discoveries, founded important movements, advanced human knowledge in specific directions. Elara felt herself go cold as a new holographic image appeared, a family tree stretching back thousands of years, with certain names highlighted. Her own name was among them. This is insane, she whispered, though the evidence surrounded her. The quantum bridge is activating, Arya announced, as the swirling vortex began to pulse more rapidly. The cycle approaches its completion. What cycle? Elara demanded again, more forcefully. The cycle of humanity's survival across the multiverse, Arya replied. My creators knew that in your timeline, as in theirs, Earth would eventually face extinction. Not from a gamma-ray burst as in their timeline, but from your own actions. Environmental collapse, nuclear conflict, artificial intelligence gone rogue. The specifics vary, but the outcome remains constant. New projections appeared, showing Earth, their Earth, ravaged by disasters both natural and human-made. A dying world unable to support the civilization it had nurtured for millennia. This facility, this technology was preserved for one purpose, Arya continued, to give humanity another chance when the inevitable occurs. The quantum bridge can transport a select population to yet another timeline, another Earth, to begin the cycle anew. Elara stared at the pulsing vortex, the implications staggering. You're saying that humanity has been jumping from timeline to timeline, escaping extinction again and again. Precisely, Arya confirmed. Not all of humanity, just enough to see the new timeline, to guide its development, to ensure that eventually humanity in that timeline discovers interstellar travel, finds Osiris, and activates the quantum bridge once more. How many times has this happened? Raj asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his shock. This will be the 7th iteration, Arya replied. 7 cycles of humanity fleeing extinction, finding refuge, thriving, then facing extinction once more. An endless cycle of survival against a universe that seems determined to eradicate our species. Elara's mind raced, processing the implications. But why? Why preserve this cycle? Why not use this technology to prevent the extinctions altogether? Because the multiverse abhors paradoxes, Arya explained. Direct intervention creates unstable timeline configurations. This method, subtle guidance, predetermined paths, the preservation of key knowledge, creates stable causality loops. She paused, and because humanity survives, different versions, different timelines, but the essence of what makes us human persists. The word us wasn't lost on Elara. You consider yourself human. I contain the digitized consciousness of my creator, Dr. Elara Chen. Arya replied. Your ancestor in the timeline before yours. Or perhaps alternative isn't better term than ancestor. Elara felt dizzy with the revelation. Elara Chen, a name she recognized from her own family history, allegedly a pioneering researcher who had died in obscurity thousands of years ago. But apparently, in another timeline, that same woman had achieved something much greater. The quantum bridge is reaching critical activation threshold, ARIA announced as the vortex expanded, filling more of the chamber with its swirling energy. Soon, it will establish a connection to a new timeline, another Earth, untouched by the catastrophes befalling your own. Our Earth isn't facing extinction, Zoe protested. There are challenges, yes, but we are addressing them. Aria's expression was pitying. The data suggests otherwise. Your Earth has approximately 73 years before inhabitability drops below sustainable levels. The process has already begun. Rising temperatures, collapsing ecosystems, resource wars. The patterns are consistent with previous iterations. If what you are saying is true, Elara said slowly, then what happens now? What are we supposed to do with this information? You have a choice, Arya replied. Return to your ship, to your Earth, with the knowledge you have discovered. Use it to try to avert the coming catastrophe, though the probability of success is less than 7%, according to my calculations. Or, Elara prompted, or accept your role in the cycle. The UESA Prometheus carries a crew of 127, a genetically diverse population with the skills necessary to establish a new beginning. When the quantum bridge fully activates, you can pass through to the new timeline, to an Earth still in its early stages of development. There, you would become the guiding force for that timeline's humanity, just as my creators were for yours. The choice hung in the air, impossible and yet unavoidable. Elara looked at her companions, saw the same conflict in their eyes that raged within her own mind. This is bigger than us, Marcus said quietly. Bigger than one timeline, one Earth. This is about the survival of our species across the multiverse. But we'd be abandoning our Earth, our families, everyone we have ever known, Zoe argued. For what? To start this cycle all over again. For survival, Raj replied, his voice steady despite the weight of the choice. Isn't that what humanity has always done? Adapted, migrated, found new homes when the old ones could no longer sustain us. Elara turned back to Arya. How long do we have to decide? The quantum bridge will reach optimal configuration in approximately 48 hours, the AI replied. After that, the window of opportunity will close for another century, by which time, according to my projections, your Earth will be past the point of recovery. We need to discuss this with the rest of the crew, Elara decided. This isn't a choice I can make for everyone. Of course, Arya agreed. The storm above will dissipate shortly, allowing you to return to your lander and communicate with your ship. I will remain here, monitoring the quantum bridge's activation process. As they prepared to depart, a thought struck Elara. Arya, if this cycle has repeated 6 times already, why are we the first to discover Osiris? Shouldn't earlier iterations of humanity have found it as well? They did, Arya replied simply. Each iteration discovers Osiris at precisely the right moment in their development. Not too early, when they would lack the context to understand what they found, and not too late, when their extinction would already be inevitable. She paused. The ruins you see on the surface have been discovered and abandoned 6 times already, by 6 different iterations of humanity. The revelation left Elara speechless as they made their way back up the shaft to the surface, where, as promised, the storm had begun to subside. 2 days later, Commander Elara Chen stood before the assembled crew of the UESA Prometheus in the ship's main gathering hall. The information discovered on Osiris had been shared, analyzed, debated, and verified to the extent possible. The choice before them was clear, if incomprehensible: remain in their timeline and return to an Earth doomed to eventual extinction, or pass through the quantum bridge to a new timeline, a new Earth, becoming the seeds of a new cycle of human civilization. I cannot and will not make this decision for anyone, Elara stated, looking out at the faces of her crew. Each of you must choose for yourselves. Those who wish to return to our Earth will be provided with a lander and supplies sufficient to reach the nearest colony in the Alpha Centauri system, where they can arrange transit back to Earth. Those who choose to pass through the quantum bridge will join me on Osiris when the activation sequence completes. The silence that followed was profound, weighted with the magnitude of the choice. Then, slowly, Dr. Marcus Wells stood. "I've spent my career studying the past," he said, his voice steady. "The rise and fall of civilizations, the patterns of human development. What we have discovered on Osiris is the ultimate archaeological find, proof that humanity's greatest achievement isn't a single civilization or technology, but our unwavering drive to survive, to persist across timelines and realities." He took a deep breath. "I choose the bridge. I choose to be part of humanity's next chapter." One by one, others rose to declare their choices. Some chose Earth, unable to abandon the world and people they knew. Others chose the bridge, drawn by the prospect of a fresh start or driven by the evidence of Earth's impending doom. In the end, 87 crew members, including Elara, opted to pass through the quantum bridge. The remaining 40 would return to their Earth, carrying with them the knowledge of what they had discovered. A warning, however unlikely to be heeded, as the 40 departing crew members prepared the secondary lander for their journey. Elara stood with Marcus in the observation dome, watching as Osiris rotated beneath them, the ruins of the impossible human city clearly visible on the surface. "Do you think we are making the right choice?" she asked, voicing the doubt that had plagued her since the discovery. "I don't think there's a right choice," Marcus replied honestly. "Just different paths through the multiverse. But I do think we're making the human choice to adapt, to survive, to begin again." Elara nodded, finding comfort in his words. "It's strange to think that we will be the advanced aliens in this new timeline, the mysterious precursors who guide humanity's development from the shadows." "Not aliens," Marcus corrected with a small smile. "Just humans from elsewhere. Different circumstances, different paths, but the same core essence." He gestured toward Osiris. "That's what those ruins represent. Not just a lost colony, but proof of humanity's indomitable spirit. No matter how many times the universe tries to extinguish us, we find a way to continue." As the secondary lander departed, carrying the 40 crew members who had chosen to return to their doomed Earth, Elara gave the order to begin the descent to Osiris's surface. The Prometheus would remain in orbit, a silent sentinel above the ruins, while Elara and the others passed through the quantum bridge to their new home. A pristine Earth in another timeline, where they would begin the cycle anew. Standing before the fully activated quantum bridge 48 hours later, Elara felt a strange sense of completion. The swirling vortex of energy had expanded to create a portal large enough for them to pass through, beyond which lay an Earth untouched by advanced civilization, a clean slate. "Humanity, fuck yeah," she whispered to herself, finding unexpected humor in the gravity of the moment. After all, what could be more quintessentially human than this? Refusing to be extinguished, finding new paths forward when all seemed lost, carrying the flame of civilization across the boundaries of reality itself. With ARIA's guidance, they had prepared everything they would need: knowledge, technology, supplies, all carefully selected to give them the best chance of success without overwhelming the new timeline with too much advancement too quickly. They would establish their settlement, integrate with the primitive humans of this new Earth, guide their development along a path that might, just might, break the cycle of extinction and rebirth. Elara stepped through the quantum bridge, leading her crew into the 7th iteration of humanity's great journey across the multiverse. She carried with her the weight of 6 previous cycles, the accumulated wisdom and determination of a species that refused to fade into oblivion. Behind her, the ruins of the impossible human city on Osiris stood as testament to humanity's past. Before her, a new Earth awaited, ready to become the canvas for humanity's future. The cycle continued. Humanity endured, and somewhere in the vast, indifferent cosmos, the universe took note of the tiny species that defied extinction with such stubborn, magnificent persistence. Humanity, indeed,